Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I'm going to give you my first thoughts of Retribution Paladin on midnight on the beta. Of course, if you follow the channel, you know that I've been very excited for beta. It's been out for 2 days now, and it's been very laggy and a tough experience to play, but I've been able to play a decent amount and kind of get some actual thoughts on some of the things that I've been reading and reporting about, and actually be like, okay, this is how that works. This is how that feels, maybe more importantly. And I want to kind of talk about a few of those things that were just like really heavy hitters right away. Like right as soon as you play, you'll notice these things, right? Um, you know, it's also worth pointing out this is not at max level. You can't make a pre-max level character, and leveling right now is almost impossible on the beta. This is only at level 80. I don't have the Apex talents yet. Worth noting that from the little bit I've played around, the Apex talents don't worry me as much now. It actually is probably going to feel pretty good to have these once they're unlocked. But let's talk about the things that I noticed like right away, and I think everyone's going to notice, or everyone already has noticed who is also playing. So number one thing is the passive holy power generation. So starting with the Dragonflight rework, we had an ability called Crusader Strike Auto Attack. It's right here where Zealot's Fervor is now. And it went on and off with Templar Strikes. Templar Strikes was really strong at first. They nerfed it. Then it was kind of similar. And then Crusading Strikes kind of just took over. And it was just passive holy power generation from auto attacks, right? And you pretty much always played it in the War Within. And people are kind of used to that, right? Now, ever since Shadowlands, we had Divine Resonance. We still have the name of the ability, but it functions differently now. It used to cast a judgment on its own, right? Now it empowers the next judgments that we cast. It used to cast judgments on its own, which then gave us holy power on its own, and that was in Shadowlands. So we had a little bit of holy power generation since Shadowlands, added more in Dragonflight, and now all of it's gone. And it feels weird. Let's be clear there. It feels very, very weird, especially with this tier set on from the War Within, where we cast another Hammer of Light after our first Hammer of Light, because then we have to build back to 5 holy power. And with 0 passive holy power generation, it feels very awkward to build back to 5. Now, if that's not a tier set or not an ability in Midnight, that won't come up. But it feels weird. Now, I don't necessarily think it's bad. And I'll talk about why it can be good as well. I'm just saying it's different. And so some people hate differences, which is totally understandable. And so if you're someone who likes the way Ret feels in the War Within, it's going to feel different. That's just the reality of it. It's going to feel different because it is different. There's no more passive holy power generation. And, you know, I've talked about this when they first mentioned it, but it feels very, very different because I wasn't even really clocking in my head that it's not just the War Within, but we've had lots of holy power generation since Dragonflight, since early in Dragonflight with the rework. We've had lots of passive holy power generation, and it's all gone. So it's a big change. It is a big, big change. And the good part of it is that if you're someone who really likes to, well, it's a possible good thing, right? It matters on how the buttons are tuned. But if you're someone who wants to skill express, right, and you know the priority and you're going to do the buttons in the perfect order every time, then you have a chance to show off or, you know, show your skills by outperforming others by pressing your buttons at the better time. Might have just had a game crash here on the beta. We'll try to log back in. But you might have a chance to better express your skills by pressing your buttons in that correct order and, you know, building up to that 5, right? So, okay, so I need to press my Templar Strikes, both of them, and then I need to press my Judgment, and then I need to press my Blade after that, unless an Art of War procs, because then I need to press Blade first, because that's going to trigger my Apex talent, which then does way more damage, and et cetera, right? So if you know your priority, so like when I do the guide for Season 1, and I go over the move priority, which is figured out with, you know, raid bots and stuff like that, you know, if you're someone who can execute that stuff really well, or use the assistant or whatever to help you if the assistant's correct, that's gonna be something that you can really enjoy. doing, because it's going to matter a lot more. Whereas in the War Within, especially, right, we were spending on 3 or 4 holy power. It didn't really matter, honestly. You could spend on 3, you could spend on 4, and now it's going to probably be more beneficial to build up the 5 again, because building perfectly is going to matter. Now, sometimes you might only build the 4 because the button you want to press gives you 2 or something, right? So maybe the best button to press is blade, and you spend and then press blade or something, right? Overcapping didn't matter as much either, because you had so much holy power coming in. You had a gluttony of it, and so overcapping didn't matter too much either. And so that's going to probably matter again too. So for people who really like to do that, it's going to feel like a really good change to you. For people who kind of liked the passive nature of it and not doing that, then that's going to be a change that you do not like. But it was the number one thing that I noticed right away. Right away, that's the number one thing. Now, something people are talking about a lot is the buttons being pruned, right? And of course, we're not immune to that, but not a ton of our buttons have been removed. In fact, Hammer of Wrath, it's gone. That used to be my button there. But it has just changed now to when you use your wings or your Radiant Glory, right? Your Judgment becomes your Hammer of Wrath. That's all. So you still have Hammer of Wrath, but it's just one less keybind. They're just saving you a keybind, essentially, I guess, which is good. I mean, I like having a little bit less keybind sometimes myself, but, we still have most of our utility abilities and stuff like that. We just lost, really just that. Final Reckoning's no longer a button, so there's no more Final Reckoning. That's worth noting as well. And of course, if you play Crusade, then you would not take Execution Sentence, because you can't. So you have to choose, assuming that these are still really good here. I guess I am making this assumption that the Wake of Ashes stuff is still going to be taken, which maybe it won't be. In some tiers or something like that, maybe the Wake of Ashes stuff won't be taken, and then you can just, like, maybe they make Radiant Glory not be good, and then you just, like, do that, for example. But as things are probably tuned right now, because I assume it's fairly close to the War Within, I don't know for sure. You might have to choose between Execution Sentence and Crusade. You could even do something like this, like that maybe, and still have Execution Sentence and Crusade. But it's just it's a little bit different, and you might have less buttons because of it. But it's not like a ton less buttons. Some other classes lost a lot more buttons than us. Let's just put it that way. We still have. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing, because the buttons that I have bound over here, I usually don't use that much. Oh, Shield of Vengeance. So there's another one. So Shield of Vengeance, again, it's not gone, because there's a talent where if you press your Divine Protection, it puts Shield of Vengeance on you, right? And so right now, now you have like a super strong cooldown, to be fair, but it's like we only have one defense cooldown. And I think that's fine if that's the direction they're going. But based on some patch notes and stuff that I've read, I'm not positive that that's not going to come back to its own separate button at some point. I'm not positive. It might not, right? I'm not saying it will come back, but it could. But for now, let's just assume it's not. And so that's technically one less button as well. So it's 2 less keybinds at least. Even though both abilities still exist, Hammer of Wrath and Shield of Vengeance, it's 2 less keybinds. I'm trying to think of what. So that would be my Hammer of Wrath, trinkets. So obviously I don't have trinkets on my bars. I don't even know. I have an unused trinket here. That's another place for a trinket. Obviously, you'd still have Avenging Wrath or Crusade if you're not playing Radiant Glory. So that would still be a button if you weren't playing that. So yeah, we're not missing too much here. I'm sorry if I'm missing something obvious here, but I know I keep all my main abilities here on the left side, and then I kind of stretch ones that I don't use as much to the right side a little bit further. And then that would be like where my potion button's at, my macro. Yeah, and then normally this is like up here, and then that's my Shield of Vengeance. Blinding Light, that's still a button, I just don't have it talented. So you still have Blinding Light. Don't have Repentance anymore. So if you're a Repentance enjoyer, that's gone, but Blinding Light would be over here for me if I had Blinding Light. So yeah, we're not really losing many buttons. It would be the takeaway there. All that to go through just to say that we're losing basically 2 keybinds, but they're just kind of folded into other abilities. Shield is folded into Divine Protection, and Hammer of Wrath is folded into Judgment. So that's where we are with our buttons. You know, I know other classes lost a lot more stuff, but that's where we are with ours. I mentioned a little bit already the Apex talents. I think these are going to feel fine now that I've actually played. I haven't played with the talents, but just seeing how this works. I mean, you're just going to get Art of War procs, and you're just going to, because it's harder to build the 5 Holy Power now. What my worry was, right, I was thinking of the old style. So like Art of War procs, you're going to want to press that to proc this Apex talent. They're going to do lots of damage, right? But you might be at 5 Holy Power, and then you want to spend first, and then you get Divine Purpose, and you know, all these kinds of things could happen. But playing with it now, because it is a little bit slower without that Holy Power, passive Holy Power generation, I don't think it's going to feel bad to just get Art of War and hit your Blade of Justice, right? There's going to be sometimes where you're at 5 and it procs, and you're going to want to hit something else first. But for the most part, I think it's going to be completely fine with Art of War procs and then pressing your Blade of Justice. Of course, we might not even play Art of War. It's possible we play Righteous Cause, in which case, each Holy Power spent has a % chance to reset the cooldown. So instead of that, so every time you spend, you have a chance to proc it instead of every time you auto attack. So they'll just have to math that out. Whichever one happens more often will be the one that we end up playing there. But I don't think the Apex talents will feel too bad once we finally get to play them. But yeah, I don't want to go too long on this because it's just my first impressions. And like I said, I haven't even played at level 90 yet. So I want everyone to take this with a grain of salt. But these are things I can definitely say, right? The passive Holy Power generation is different. It feels really different pressing Judgment now because we've been playing 2 Holy Power Judgment for basically 2 full expansions, Dragonflight and War Within. And then, so that feels very, very different. And then there's only 2 less keybinds, really. Technically could be more. If you don't play Execution Sentence, then it would be 3 less buttons, because normally you'd either have Execution Sentence or Final Reckoning, so you'd have something to press there. So if you don't play Execution Sentence, then it would be 3 less. But it's mostly the same amount of buttons for us, but a couple less, and it frees up a couple keybinds, which is fine with me overall. So yeah, those are things I can say definitively, right? And that's mostly what I want to talk about here. Obviously, we'll have more coverage. I will, as soon as I can, level a character up to 90, play at 90, play Apex talents. As soon as I can test the dungeons, I'll test the dungeons. As soon as I can test the raids, I'll probably jump into some raid testing. I'll be testing delves and everything, and giving more concise reports at max level. But I did want to come on. I've been so excited about it. I want to do a video about my first reactions, my first thoughts to actually getting on and playing, and hopefully people aren't. I just want to point out too, before we end the video, that I'm not dooming over it personally. If you're somebody who's like, oh man, this sounds bad, I love the passive Holy Power, it sounds like it's a big change, don't be doomed about it yet. It feels pretty good once you're actually fighting stuff. The only thing that feels weird is the tier set bonus, right? So the tier set bonus making me having to build up to 5 again just to cast my next ability, that feels a little bit weird, but it's not that bad overall. I know it might seem like, if you're someone who loves the passive, we can show a little bit on the dummy here too, I guess, right? So that's like building to 5, Hammer of Light. Now I still have the tier set on, so I have to do another Hammer of Light there. And now, like, I kind of want to try to build up to 5 every time. So there, 1 for Judgment. My Art of War proc, so I technically would have wanted to press that with Apex talents. So right here, I could either press another one to build up to 5 or spend it 4. Art of War proc. Divine Purpose. It's just a little bit slower, if you notice that. Just a bit slower than what it currently is. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It feels really strong when you're hitting mobs. I'll say that. At least the limited amount of mobs I've gotten to hit which are basically in the leveling zones and like the follower dungeons thing that you can actually do here on the beta. The cooldowns feel great. So execution sentence, then you use your wake, and like this is like largely the same, right? This feels really good. Like this whole portion, this feels great. I would love to see a damage meter on this because this feels good. But the stuff in between, it's a little bit more monotonous. And if these buttons are meaningful, you're going to really need to be able to do your rotation correctly. So just to show a little bit on the dummy there so you can actually see something at least, I guess, some actual action. But yeah, and this is like, I'm pure single target spec for this. Like purely single target. I haven't even messed around much with AoE, but it's pretty much the same thing. Empyrean power, etc., etc. You know, the whatever shield or Blade of Vengeance, Blessed Champion. Talents didn't really change that much, so we'll call it quits on this one though. I have a lot more videos coming. I didn't want to go on too long with this. I probably went too long, same as always, right? But I didn't want to go too long with this, but we'll have tons more videos of this. I'll be on the beta a lot. And as soon as I can, like I said, I'll be level 90, whether it's because I can create a level 90 or because I leveled a level 90. We will be at 90 and we will be figuring some stuff out. So as always, I do ask you to please subscribe, especially if you're interested in more Ret Paladin content. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.